This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
But yesterday, after we got off the air, I want to say about, I don't know, I want to say about 2 hours after, 2.5 hours after, came across that Eddie Van Halen had passed away. And it was one of those states for me of, you know, you kind of got like an immediate depression setting in, you know, and it's a moment where you're watching the Marlins game, you can't wait for the Heat game later on in the evening, and you've got to sit and all that, and you get hit like a ton of bricks. Look, some of you out there could give a rat's ass about Eddie Van Halen. Some of you barely even know anything about Van Halen, so it doesn't really affect your world nearly as much. But, you know, 2020 has sucked in so many different ways for all of us, and it's been a setback for all of us, right? I mean, we've all suffered serious setbacks because of 2020, and we're still in the process of suffering setbacks, and it's probably still going to get a little worse too, because we haven't really done enough to end the pandemic because the guy at the top doesn't take it serious. So it continues to fester, you know what I mean? Hey, just go look at Mike Holmgren's comments, and you'll see what I'm talking about. But yesterday I get the news of Eddie Van Halen, and people tell me all the time, oh, why do you go to so many concerts? I saw you posted, this is the third time, the 10th time, the 15th time you've seen this band. If you saw them once, why do you want to see them again? You know, and it's hard to explain to people that don't have a passion for live music like I do. It's hard to explain to people that don't have a passion for music, period, like I do. You know what I mean? And so I know that the people that do feel like I do. And I know it's not a majority of you out there, but for me, Eddie Van Halen was a big part of my growing up. Van Halen was a huge part of my, you know, of my teenage years, let's say. I still remember hearing Running with the Devil for the first time, and that boom, 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 boom. And it's just one of those things that from that moment on, that band captured, you know, my attention, my fandom right away. Always went to see them in concert when they came. My first Eddie Van Halen concert was 1981, the Fair Warning Tour, over at the Hollywood Sportatorium. I still, to this day, I can still picture my dad in his big Ford truck dropping me off 2 blocks away from the Sporto. Because I told him, no, you got to drop it. You're not
Can't be seen with your dad, bro.
Yeah, no. And my dad was one of the few dads that actually had cool vehicles that you could actually, it's not bad that he drops you off in a badass.
In hindsight, you should have let him drop you off.
Yeah, you know, whether he was driving a truck or a Vet or a Mercedes, he always had nice wheels. So it was one of those deals that it's not a bad thing in that case, but you still don't want to get caught, you know, with your parents, right? So, and at that time, I'm, 15 years old, you know, I think I'm 14, gonna be 15. And he drops me off 2 blocks away from the Sporto. And if you know anything about the Sporto, 2 blocks away from the Sporto means you're really about a half a mile away from the actual building itself, because there's a whole parking lot and everything till you get to the Sporto. So, he dropped me off quite a distance from it, and that was planned.
Right by Morosa Speedway, right there.
Yeah, it's before that. So you still have to walk through the Speedway and the parking lot and then get to, the place. And so that was my first concert, and obviously I saw them multiple times in almost every tour after that. And Eddie Van Halen was a guy, I remember when they reunited years ago, after they had been broken up for a while and they restarted their tour. They started up in New York. and I was afraid that the tour would not get to South Florida because they could break up again. I flew with my wife to see them in Jersey. Flew in, checked out the concert, and then flew back out early in the morning. So all we did, we didn't even stay in a hotel or anything. We just went right back to the airport and took a red eye on the way back. And so just one of those deals where it's a huge part of my life. You always wanted to try to find seats on the right side where Eddie was jamming. You know what I mean? Nothing against Michael Anthony. You knew you were going to see David all over the stage. In the younger days, obviously, and that last concert, not the last concert, but the last few concerts, it wasn't the same David that we had in the 80s. That was a whole different David Lee Roth when we talk about the showmanship, the athleticism, and all of that. But Eddie was a guy that you knew you were watching something special every time. And it was a thing that you marveled. And when you went to that concert and you had friends of yours that were also musicians, you saw how they marveled at Eddie. And when you watch other musicians that are big-time musicians talk about Eddie, it's like we all had that same feeling. Because I was talking about this I was texting back and forth with some guys yesterday, and for me, the most influential rock guitarists are Jimi Hendrix and Eddie Van Halen. To me, those are and they're the two best. Okay, and I'm talking about rock to the edge of metal. I'm not talking about all genres. I'm not talking because there's that's subjective, and we can get into all kinds of names at that point, from Stevie Ray Vaughan to you name it, to Gary Moore. You know what I'm saying? So there's all kinds of people that we can throw in there. But Eddie was a guy that everybody wanted to copy. A lot of people wanted to sound like him. He was innovative in the way he did his playing and his style, and influential too with the things he did. When when you're watching Michael Jordan every night, it's something special. When you're watching Pat Mahomes, it's something special. And to me, when somebody asked me years ago, like, dude, why are you going to go all the way up to Jersey to go see Halen? And I said, Eddie, I got to go see Eddie. I mean, the last couple of trips to see a Van Halen concert, I did not go because I expected a great concert by the singing standards. David Lee Roth, his voice, he never had a great voice, but it sounded good with that music in those days. But he could never even do that anymore. He doesn't even sound like that old David Lee Roth from back in the day. So all those last concerts that I went to from Van Halen, I want to say maybe the last 6 concerts of Van Halen, because that was past the 90s. I went strictly for Eddie.
Background vocals were carrying the songs.
Yes. And they always had great harmonies with the guys.
But I mean, they would switch and do the lead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just was never, and it shows you that I was willing to pay the money. I was willing to travel because I wanted to see Eddie. Because and when people would ask me, and I've said for years, David's voice is shot. And then when people hear, hey, I'm going to go to the Halen concert, they're going to go, dude, but you say all the time Roth's voice is shot. And I go, yeah, but Eddie can still play. So I want to go see the show. I want to go see Eddie. And when Eddie did a guitar solo in the middle of the concert, it was like Neil Peart doing his solo in a Rush concert. It was the moment, the highest peak of that concert in that moment. As great as Van Halen was, as entertaining as it was, you wanted to see the Eddie Van Halen solo. Rush's concerts were phenomenal from beginning to end. You did not want to miss a Neil Peart solo. That's just the way it goes. There are certain solos for certain bands and certain musicians that you knew at that moment you were watching something special. And Eddie was the kind of guy that wasn't really doing the same solo every night. So you are watching something different from the night before because he was one of those guys that would ad-lib. Remember, Eddie never learned how to read music. So it was just one of those things. And he just had the magic of it and the ear and everything. And he was just at another level. You know what I mean? And for me, yesterday when I got the news, I mean, 2020 has sucked because we've already lost some great people. 2020 has sucked because it has set our entire world back. You know what I mean? So many people have lost their jobs, their careers, businesses. I just read, I forgot which one it was, but it was, I don't know if I wrote the story down or just read it. But there's a business that I read, that big-time business, that is just absolutely they're out. They're done because COVID has just torn them apart. And they can't keep all these businesses that are just taking on losses after losses after losses, and they're trying to hang in there to wait till we come back, and we don't come back.
You can only bleed for so long.
Yeah, and 2020 has been terrible in so many different ways for so many people, and we're all still trying to survive because we're tough some bitches as Americans. But yesterday, to get the news, and I know Eddie was dealing with the cancer for a long time and battling it, and to see what Wolfgang wrote, you know, about his dad, and when he says, I don't think I'll ever fully recover, I can tell you, Wolfgang, that you never recover. Okay, you won't ever fully recover. It's just something you learn to live with, because I had a great relationship with my dad, and I loved my dad. Still love my dad to this day, obviously. Love him more now than ever. I haven't had him around for so long. But you never stop. There's at one point of the day, at one point or something, I will think about my dad. You know what I mean? And yesterday I even thought about him because I thought about the 81 Fair Warning concert, because that's the only concert he took me to of Van Halen. The next time Van Halen, came to town, I had wheels, and I was already, off and running at that point. But it's just one of those deals that I would tell Wolfgang if I knew him. I would say, and I always tell people, anybody that loses a loved one like that, I usually tell them, my condolences and all of that. I know it's a tough moment, and because I experienced it, I warn them ahead of time. You're never going to recover. You have to just learn to live with it, is what you do. I mean, unless you didn't have a great relationship with your parent, then maybe it's not that difficult to recover. But if you had a great relationship with your parent, I can tell you for a fact, with my dad, I've never recovered ever. And so obviously my thoughts and prayers are out to Wolfgang and everybody in the Van Halen family, and all of you out there that are Van Halen fans. And if you ever got to see Eddie Van Halen, I think you know what I'm talking about. And if you never got to see him and you missed out on the opportunity, you missed out on something absolutely special. And thoughts and prayers, rest in peace, Eddie Van Halen. I wish I was able to see you one more time.